Hey everyone, today I'm going to be painting up this Space Marine in the scheme of the Angels of Defiance, a Dark Angel successor chapter. Let's get into it. To start off, I'm using some 3D prints to elevate the model a little bit, make him look more like a Dark Angel successor. I'm going to then prime the model in black, and you can use any spray primer you want. I think for this one I used Vallejo black. Starting with some Mechanicus Gray, I'm going to start applying this to where our ivory color is going to go, thinning it down with some water so we can retain as much detail as we can on our model here. I don't typically like going to such a bright color directly onto something that's primed black, because I don't want to apply so many coats of ivory and have it look rough with all of those layers. So we're starting with gray. Once that is dry, I'm going to take some Elfic Flesh from Vallejo and apply it on top of where we have painted our gray. As always, apply in 2 thin coats till we get a nice opaque color. Since I'm doing a half pattern on the armor, it's okay to not be precise in this step. We are going to create our crisp lines when we apply our black paint. Now going to our black paint, I'm going to apply this to everywhere else on the armor, and when making our half pattern, I'm going to keep as steady as a hand as I can and inch closer to the middle portions of the armor to try and achieve some nice crisp lines. Forgot to hit some areas with the Elfic Flesh, so I'm just going to go back really quickly to add those and to clean up any mistakes where the black meets the color on the armor. To continue basing our colors, I'm going to use some Caliban green and apply it to the cape, hood, and the loincloth. Then breaking out some Mephiston red, I'm going to paint on top of the pistol and the rifle. Going back to the black armor sections, I'm going to start adding in some highlights using some dry brushing. I like to start off with some subtle colors and then build up from that, so I'm going to start using Eshin Gray. Continuing with the highlights, I'm going to move to Mechanicus Gray and highlighting some of the sharper portions of the armor. On the cloth, I'm going to grab some Warpstone Glow and add highlights to the cloth. Now I'm going to thin this down, but I'm going to use it pretty liberally onto the cape and loincloth, pretty much applying this to the mid to highest raised folds of the cape, making sure our darker Caliban green stays uncovered in the recesses to give us depth. Since I am thinning this down, I am doing this in multiple layers to try to achieve a nice smooth transition in our green tones. Here it is all done for now. At this point, I would like to remind everyone watching that right now this model is under studio lights and all that jazz, so this appears pretty bright, but in reality it is a few shades darker. I just want to make sure people are aware of that. Using Baneblade Brown, I'm going to fill this ribbon on the Autobolt rifle, and then I'm going to go back to Mephiston Red to fill in the rope on the loincloth and the cape. To fill in our metallic elements on the model, I'm using Warpaint's Fanatic Gunmetal. For the casings in the rifle magazine, I'm breaking out some Runelord brass. I'm also going to use this for the sword hilt as well. Going back to our gunmetal, I'm going to add in some fresh chips into the armor before we start the rest of our weathering. Before we add in the rest of our chips onto the model though, I'm going to take a minute to apply some decals. Switching to Rhinox hide, I'm going to fill in the handle of the power sword and then add in some chips under the rest of the armor. For that, I'm using a torn off piece of a cheap makeup wedge, which has been a pretty easy way to add in some realistic chips if you don't want to use a brush for this. Using some black paint, I'm going to add in some chips and scratches to the shoulder pad where our decal is applied. I'm a little all over the place right now, but going back again to our gunmetal, more chips and scratches onto the armor. Before we do our enamel wash, I'm going to use a matte varnish to apply it all over the model. This helps me seal in what I've done already and to protect the decal in case I'm too rough with the mineral spirits in the coming step. And on to the wash, I'm using roughly 50-50 mix of Winter Streaking Grime and mineral spirits to cover the entire model with this. And after all that is applied, I'm going to be using a Q-tip that's been dampened with mineral spirits to rub off the excess and help create a weathered, battered look on our model. You don't need to be aggressive with this step. You can take it slow until you get the look that you like, and then you can either let it air dry or you can speed up the process by blasting it with a hairdryer. So here we are with all this dried and with lighting change, because I'm pretty sure after I applied the wash, I picked this up like a day or so later, and that's why the lighting is different, because I had to set up all my equipment. But moving on, I got some black wash here and I'm going to use it to apply a recess shade in the crevices of the model and in the depths of the fold on the cape, and I'm going to apply a few layers on the power sword to darken it so our blue effect I'm going to be doing later stands out a bit more. Now I'm not sure why, but I grabbed some Iron Warriors paint instead of the gunmetal for adding in some fresh chips here, so don't feel like you need to do what I did. Using whatever metallic you used previously will work just as fine. Working on the sword, I'm going to use this and add in some edge highlights and some scratches. To add in some glow onto our power sword, I'm going to thin down some Imperial Blue quite a bit, and working in layers, I'm going to start applying this to the surrounding area on top of the power nodule of the sword. It's always a good idea to start off slow and to add more as you see fit, rather than the opposite. It's easier to add than it is to take away. Moving on to a brighter blue, this time magic blue. Same thing, except I'm not going to be so widespread with it. I'm going to keep it closer to the nodule, just thin layers, working as you need it, building up that blue. From here, I'm going to take some magic blue and I'm going to add a little bit of white just for the nodule on the sword where the glow is emanating from. And the final step is to just take some white paint and sparingly add it to the center of the nodule and the rod. Alright, we are almost done, just a few more steps, but I'm going to start now adding some weathering to the boots and the cloth to tie our model more onto the base I'm going to be making for him. To do this, I'm starting with some AK dirt, thinned down and working in layers, adding it to the boots, lower portion of the shin, and the bottom of the cloth. Then doing the same process, though more sparingly, with AK dry mud. Our last step is adding a small amount of dirty down rust to push our weathering just a little bit more, but if you don't want to add rust, that is totally fine. Just, don't add any. And there you have it. I actually applied some more matte varnish to the cape and the boots where we applied our dirt and mud. I don't think I mixed up those bottles well enough and it didn't give me the finish that I wanted. Looking back on this, I think I would have gone with another step of highlighting on the black armor some more, maybe with some Dawnstone or another light gray to bring it out a bit more. I also think that I would have tried to push the cloth of the hood a bit more with either more highlights or shadows or even both, but I'm pretty happy with how this turned out overall. A video for the base will be following this video, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you everyone for stopping by and giving this video a watch. I really appreciate it. Even if you didn't like it, I still appreciate you stopping by, and at least I hope it inspires you to paint your models and maybe try something new. Thank you everyone, till next time.